Natural Selection Entertainment presents a Darwin's Pride production. Starring 8-time Mass Extinction Award winner Chuck Norris in SMELTA FORCE.
Hey, what's up you guys? This is Steve from Natural Selection Angling, coming back at you today with another great video. And in today's video, we're going to tie some flies. If you remember in our last episode, we talked about the physics and the mechanical arrangement of flashers and flies. Now we're going to tie some flies for some fun. Okay, so there's lots of different materials you can use. You can see these pre-prepared 4-inch fly materials from Purple Taco. Here's just a whole bunch of stuff I've got left over from all sorts of other bait builds. Use up some of that stuff. Some craft fur. This stuff works great for little flies. And here we got a bunch of feathers, which of course are always in play for flies. We're not going to use these today, but I use them quite often. And then here's a bunch of flash, and we're going to use a lot of this type of stuff today. All right, there's the wind up. All right, we're going to use some thread. I have various colors set up on bobbins here, but you know, you can use whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. We're going to use some glue to help out with the bonding. And you know, threads come in all different sorts of configurations. You got thick, thin, different colors, glow threads. I've stuck a cotton swab into my vise here. And on the cotton swab, I have put a little piece of plastic tubing. This is like 3/16 inch tubing with the 1/8 inch inside diameter. And we're going to tie these flies onto this tubing because then we can change the fly without having to change the leader. And I'll show you that later. All right, just going to use some very traditional red here. Lay down a little bit of thread base and just capture the thread onto the plastic sleeve. Not going to get too much into the technique here, and I'll probably do some breakout videos that shows a little bit more, but I'll show you every step and you can follow along. I'm going to add a little bit of super glue here. I want to make sure that I capture these wraps with some glue, and then also I like to use the gel because it'll be a little bit tacky yet when I start to add the materials on top of the fly, and it'll stick to that. I'm just going to start out with some clear pearl. Now remember, these flies can be fished either this way or the other way, right? You can reverse them so they flare out. And so you have to decide what material you want on the inside and what material you want on the outside based on how you're going to fish them. But they are reversible because of the nature of them. So I'm just going to catch the corner here with some thread, get a couple wraps on, and then I'm going to wind this material around my little plastic sleeve, taking care to wind it in the same direction as my threads are going because I want the thread to pull it tighter and not work it backwards, right? So just get it on there nice and straight, and then we'll throw a couple wraps over the top to hold it. You don't even need to use thread for this, guys. You can use tape, you can use glue. I've seen people use zip ties and strong rubber O-rings. But this is a durable fly. If you do it this way, it's going to be very durable. It's basically going to last forever. I'm just using pieces of material here that are about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. I don't want this fly to be super bulky, but you can decide that on a piece by piece basis how bulky or thin you want the flies, and it really depends on the conditions that you're fishing and what you're trying to do with it. But by making these reversible, you can fish it as a thin, streamlined fly, or you can fish it as a thicker, bulkier fly if you just flip it over. I like to fish mine kind of the inside out way, like a bass skirt, and so I'll put this glow right on the outside so that when I flip the fly around, that glow will be on the inside. So it'll be flashy on the outside with a little bit of glow showing through. I don't put too much stock in the recipes for these flies. I mean, at this point, they're flies and flashers and spoons. They're like hybridized cannabis now, right? They've lost all their original flavor. They all kind of look the same. So I just tie them the way that I want them to look, and I don't worry about recipes because every recipe kind of gives you a green or blue fly, right? Just going to add some UV resin here to protect the threads and give it a nice shine. Now you can see by the method of construction that this is a forever fly. It'll have to be physically destroyed strand by strand, right? And just cure off that resin. And there we have a finished 4-inch trolling fly. So you can fish it this way too. One way flares out really nice, and the other way is very subtle. Just decide what you want to do with them. Let's start on another one. This time we'll throw down a little bit of orange thread. Again, you can use whatever you want. Here we're going to use some of this flash, and this is like a really thin, stranded, flat foil holographic flash. It comes in pieces that are about 10 inches long, so I'm just going to tie it on right in the middle. And I'll bring it around the other side and tie it off on the other side. So now laterally it has two very shiny sides. Well, this is some twisted holographic flash. It's going to be super nice and flashy, but it's also going to have a little more texture and be a little stiffer than that tinsel type flash. So just put a couple of wraps on it to control it here. And with this stuff, I'm going to cut it off and then retie it, because if you bend this back over itself, it'll create a giant lump because this stuff is thicker. It has bulk to it. I'll just tie this off again and flip the fly over and tie it off again. So now I have good coverage all the way around the fly. We'll just add another color here and keep moving. Well, this is going to create a fairly bulky fly, and you can use as much or as little material as you like. It's really up to you. And don't worry about the tail end yet. We'll take care of that all at once. All we're working on here is the nose cone. I'll throw a whip finish on there. You can see my little jig for holding the fly is turning. So you can see the fly is trying to spin on me. I'll get control of that. All right, now we want about a 4-inch fly, and you can make these any size you want. So I'm just going to dress back the material and keep it nice and even. And I'm just going to cut it off square at the back. Okay, there it is. Right, you see how the nature of this material is a little bit different? It's got a little different flow to it. Now we'll change it up, put some pink thread on here, and make another one. Real time, if you're wondering, how long it takes to make these things, it's about 3 or 4 minutes per fly, I guess. I'm just going to use this plastic tube here to push the fibers back because I'm using a different method to tie this one. I'm going to show you how to do this here. And what we're doing is we're pulling the material back, and then we're going to start thread wrapping in the front and just make a ramp up against that material to push it back, but not all the way back. So it'll still be pretty flary, right? But it'll have a natural flare in the subtle direction as well. So I'm just showing you some different ways to do these as we go along. That wrap back against this folded over material will just make it kind of stick out a little bit more. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to do the same thing here, just dress back all the fibers and cut it off to the length that we want it. That's a really nice fly. Okay, back into the vise, and now we're just going to add some accessories to this. We're going to put some 6mm blue holographic eyes on there. So it's going to give it some flash and a little bit of color, a little bit of contrast. And we'll just super glue those eyes right on. Take your time here and just make sure that the eyes are parallel to one another and they're exactly opposite on the head. So just take your time here because you can't undo this. Yeah, that's looking good. And once that glue sets up, then we'll come back in and finish the head. Going to UV resin all of the threads again, and also capture both eyes on the top and the bottom with this resin so it has a more solid head. I mean, we all sincerely hope these eyes will get knocked off by catching so many fish, but I'm going to try to keep them on there nonetheless. This rubber band I use just to hold the fibers back out of my way. And there it is. And so there's some 4-inch trolling flies all built on tubes, but using some different methods of construction that you guys can settle on the way that you want to do it. Okay, now we're going to do some peanut flies. I'm going to start off just by laying a thread base onto the shank of a number 4 3X VMC Barbarian hook. You don't need to have really big hooks for these peanut flies. I've seen some big stickers used, and that's really not necessary. And you have to remember early in the season, these fish are pretty small, and you want them to be able to eat the whole fly. So I'm just combing out some craft fur here, and then I'll stand it up with the scissors and cut off what I need. And then I'll just take my comb here and comb out the under fibers because I don't want all that bulk. I just want to have a tail. We'll put this right onto the hook shank. Then capture it with a couple of wraps. Now the treble hook has 3 sides on the shank, and I'm just gonna put a piece of craft fur or a bundle of craft fur on each side to make the body of the fly and the tail. All right, that looks good. Now you can see we got little fuzzies on here. Here's a great trick. Quick with the lighter, just real quick, and it'll burn up those craft fur fibers and you won't see anything at all, and it won't damage anything else. This is a great trick. I think every fly tyer knows this already, by the way. Okay, now I'm going to add a little bit of flash here, and this is just a shorter flash. And you can use whatever colors you want. This one is kind of like a peacock gold. It's just going to give it some flash and not add a lot of bulk. So this is going to be a very thin fly that is going to have very easy movement in the water and not a lot of bulk. So, you know, great for clear water and great for using a high frequency dodger. And there you have it. Pretty simple little peanut fly. But these things work really good early in the year. These are great for this type of fishing. That's a little bit of craft fur, a little bit of tinsel, and not very bulky. All right, now we're gonna do the quick way. I'm gonna take some of this craft fur. I'm sorry, this is strung fuzzy fiber. And I've mixed a couple of colors here, and I'm just gonna put it, I'm gonna take my bobbin threader and put it through the eye of the hook. I'm gonna put the material through the bobbin threader, and I'm gonna use the bobbin threader to pull the material through the eye of the hook. This is the fastest and cheapest way to make one of these peanut flies. It's like zero effort. All right, now you see the material is through the eye, and I'm just gonna take a piece of this rubber tubing and I'm gonna push it down over the eye to dress the fibers back and hold them in place. Add a little bit of glue, and then I'll slide that sleeve right over the top. And that's it. All right, this is literally like a 1-minute peanut fly. This is also the weakest method of construction. You know, what happens is these pieces of tubing eventually will just get eaten up by UV rays and they'll fall apart. But a little bit of glue under there, that'll help it. And it's just going to give you a quick, down and dirty, really easy peanut fly. And you can decide how far the material flares out by how long of a piece of tubing you slide over the top and how far you push it down the shank. All right, so here's another one. Nice bulky green one here. Same thing, I'm just using this tube to dress the fibers back to get them all in the same direction. I've just added this piece of pink tubing, and I'm just gonna glue the fibers right at the eye. Okay, this one we're gonna tie one on. There's a different way to do it. And this is the way I prefer to do these. I like to tie stuff because it's forever, it's permanent, and I like the way that it looks too on the finished fly. So I'm just putting a loose wrap on here, and I'm using my fingers to twist the material. I'm pinching it and twisting it around the hook shank so that it's even all the way around the hook shank. And you can just pick this out, make sure it's all even around the actual hook points. I use this little plastic tube to dress the fibers back and build the thread ramp up against those fibers to force them back. All right, then we'll just throw a whip finish on this guy. And this is what we've got so far. Dress those fibers back and cut them off. Well, you got a pretty puffy peanut fly. I'm going to go a little bit further with this, and I'm going to add another coat of UV resin to the head of this and use that resin to capture those fibers back just a little bit so they don't stick straight out. And then just a final coat to make it look nice. And that's it. That's a nice looking fly. Will last forever. All right, now we talked about this modular system. This is the best way to do this, in my opinion, for these larger trolling flies. If you tie them on a tube, you can slide the tube right down onto any existing leader, okay? So you don't have to invest in so many hooks and tie so many knots and have endless leaders in your box, right? You can just go on the fly like this. No pun intended. All right, so take that fly off and put this fly on. Right, in a matter of seconds, you're back in the water and the fly's wet again. This one's pretty cool. It came out nice. Coming at you. All right, guys, this has been a really fun one. We covered a lot of ground here, made some really cool stuff, and I hope that you enjoyed it and you can do some on your own too. I've been way behind on making videos because I took a consulting job that's keeping me so busy. And, you know, I'm trying to knock these videos out, but this was a one-take jam here. So I hope everything was in order for you and you enjoyed it and it made sense. If it didn't, let me know down in the comments. Pretty cool stuff. So, all right, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the alert bell so you don't miss anything important on the next one. Take care of yourselves, guys, and each other.